These coins have stunned collectors and auction houses alike. You might have one sitting in a jar at home right now. The most fascinating finds in modern U.S. coin history. The rare and valuable 1980 for Pierre Washington $quarter. Now, before we dive deep into how this coin became such a valuable piece of numismatic treasure, the Washington quarter design itself was already a classic by 1984. Introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, it had been in continuous production for decades. By the time the 1980s rolled around, the design had undergone minor modifications, but the core image, Washington's profile on the obverse, the heraldic eagle on the reverse, remained intact. However, even with all the experience the mint had in producing these coins, mistakes still happened. And when mistakes happen in coin production, they can create the kind of errors that collectors dream about. But here's the twist: 1984 also produced a smaller number of off-metal error quarters, where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Some were struck on nickel plankets, making them smaller and lighter than standard quarters. Others were even struck on copper cents or foreign coin blanks. Each of these off-metal errors creates its own niche of rarity, and when paired with a Philadelphia mint mark from 1984, the value can skyrocket into the tens of thousands of dollars. That's where we get into the jaw-dropping auction results: coins that have sold for $60,000, $68,000, and even approaching $76,000 for pristine, high-grade examples. Now, you might be asking, how on earth does a simple quarter reach such insane values? The answer is a combination of factors: rarity, demand, condition, and provenance. Let's break that down in a way that makes sense without getting too technical. Rarity is straightforward. If only a handful of these error coins exist, you've got built-in scarcity. Demand comes from collectors who specialize in either Washington quarters, error coins, or both. When multiple serious collectors compete at an auction, the prices can quickly spiral upward. Condition is critical to a coin graded mint state 66 or 67 by PCGS or NGC. The rarest and most mysterious modern U.S. coins, the 1983 Pierre Washington $quarter. Today, I'm going to take you deep into the fascinating history of this coin, the errors that make it so valuable, the features you need to look for, and why even after more than 40 years, it still sparks excitement and bidding wars in the coin collecting world. Stay with me until the end, because the details I'm about to share could turn the next quarter you check into a life-changing discovery. To understand why the 1983 Pierre Washington $quarter became such a legend among collectors, we need to take a trip back to the early 1980s. It was a turbulent time for the U.S. Mint. The economy was recovering from a deep recession, coin production had been scaled back in some previous years, and there had been no official mint sets produced in 1982 or 1983. That last detail is critical because it meant that high-quality, uncirculated examples of coins from these years were scarce right from the start. Without mint sets, most 1983 quarters went straight into circulation, and that's just the beginning. Some 1983 P quarters also show major double strikes, off-center strikes, or planchet errors where the coin was struck on an improperly prepared blank. In certain cases, the coin may have been struck on the wrong planchet, entirely meaning a blank meant for a different denomination or metal composition. One record-breaking example graded in superb gem condition with a dramatic error sold for over $40,000. Another with an even rarer combination of features, a pristine surface, an unusual striking anomaly, and full mint luster crossed the auction block for a staggering $47,000. And perhaps most mind-blowing of all, a spectacular error specimen with nearly flawless preservation, and I appeal fetched an incredible $55,000 for a coin that started its life worth only 25 cents. Those numbers are almost hard to believe. But this is the magic of numismatics, the perfect blend of rarity, demand, and condition that can send values. So what should you look for if you want to spot one of these elusive treasures? Start with the basics. Check the date. It must read 1983. And the mint mark should be a small P on the obverse side, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Then, carefully examine the reverse for that distinctive raised line coming from the eagle's beak, the so-called spitting eagle. While this alone won't make your coin worth tens of thousands, it's a good sign you might have a variety worth checking out. Next, inspect the strike. Is it off-center? Does the rim look unusually wide on one side and narrow on the other? These could indicate striking errors. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers, unusual metal textures, or even signs that the coin might have been struck on a planchet from another denomination. One of the most elusive and high-value modern quarters ever produced, the rare 1980 to P-era Washington quarter dollar. This coin is the definition of hiding in plain sight. On the surface, it's a Washington quarter like millions of others minted in the early 80s. Same profile of George Washington, same eagle on the reverse, same overall design that had been around for decades. But underneath, hidden in its history and striking process, to really understand why the 1980 to P-era Washington quarter dollar is so sought after, we have to rewind the clock to the early 1980s, a turbulent time for U.S. coinage. In 1982, the United States Mint made a major cost-cutting decision. Rising metal prices had already forced changes to pennies and other coins, but in 1982, the Mint decided to do something else, eliminate the use of proof-like striking techniques for circulation coins and, more importantly, stop producing coin sets that included certain special strike quarters. At the same time, they began experimenting with dies, plankets, and striking pressures, but the most famous and high value. By now you're probably wondering, how rare are we talking? While exact numbers are impossible to confirm, professional grading services have seen only a handful of these high-grade error 1980 to P quarters in their lifetime. Many experts estimate that fewer than 100 truly high-quality examples exist, and only a fraction of those are in near-perfect mint state condition. That scarcity, combined with the demand for Washington quarter errors, is exactly what pushes values into jaw-dropping territory. In fact, a pristine, top-graded example can bring $20,000, $28,000, or even hit that incredible $35,000 market auction when bidding wars break out. Let's paint a picture. You're searching through a roll of quarters from your local bank. You see a 1980 to date, and think nothing of it. But then, you notice the surfaces aren't like the rest. The luster has a deep, mirrored quality, almost proof-like. The letters jump off the coin with razor-sharp edges, and under magnification, you can see doubling that shouldn't be there. Or maybe the metal looks off slightly different in color or texture, a sign of an unusual planchet. That's when your heart starts pounding, because you know you could be holding one of these elusive treasures. Of course, condition is everything. While any 1980 to P-era quarter has collector appeal, the ones that hit those massive price levels are in extremely high grades, mint state 67, 68, or better. That's why proper handling is crucial. If you think you've found one, don't clean it, don't toss it back into change, and don't let it bang around in a drawer. Get it into a protective holder, and consider sending it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. A high-grade certification is often the difference between a few $100s and tens of thousands. One of the most elusive modern coins out there, the 1981 P-era Washington quarter dollar. Today, we're diving deep into why this quarter is so special, how it came to be, the rare errors that make it so valuable, and how to spot one that could change your life. Stick around until the end, because the secrets behind these coins could mean the difference between tossing away a small fortune. 1981. The United States Mint in Philadelphia was busy producing the Washington quarter with the familiar design, George Washington's profile on the obverse, the majestic eagle on the reverse. This was a time when quarters were still made from a copper-nickel-clad composition, not silver, and in huge numbers. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 601 million quarters in 1981. That's a mind-boggling amount, so you might think they'd be everywhere. And they are, but here's the thing. Out of those hundreds of millions, a microscopic fraction left the Mint with major, collectible, high-value errors. One of the most famous varieties in 1981 quarters is the dramatic off-center strike. Imagine looking at a coin where Washington's face is shifted so far over that part of the design is missing entirely. Some of these off-center errors are so extreme that you can see blank space on the coin. The rarer the off-center strike, and the more of the date you can still read, the more valuable the coin. A perfectly dramatic example in pristine condition can easily reach 5 figures at auction. Then there are double strikes, where the coin is struck twice by the dies, causing the design to appear doubled, ghost-like, or distorted. A sharp, clear double strike from 1981 can bring thousands of dollars. Collectors go wild for these, because they're a frozen moment of minting chaos, a glimpse into the exact moment the machinery went awry. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping errors are the wrong planchette strikes. This happens when the mint accidentally uses a blank intended for another denomination, like a nickel, dime, or even a foreign coin, and strikes it with the quarter design. The result is a quarter-sized design on a smaller or different colored metal, sometimes weighing less than it should. A 1981 P-quarter struck on a nickel planchette, for example, is extremely rare and can command $10,000 or more in the right condition. Another key detail that collectors obsess over is the condition, or grade, of the coin. Mint state examples, those that look brand new, with no wear from circulation, are the cream of the crop. A 1981 P-quarter with a dramatic error in MS65 or higher can be the ticket to that $18,000 or $25,000 payday. Lower grade coins still hold significant value if the error is rare enough, but the top prices are always reserved for those pristine, eye-catching examples that look like they just rolled off the press. The 1988 P-era Washington quarter dollar. Now, this is the kind of coin that can make your heart race, your palm sweat, and your jaw drop to the floor. Imagine pulling a regular old quarter from your change jar, the kind you've seen 1,000 times before, only to realize it's not regular at all. It's one of the rarest mistakes ever to slip out of the U.S. Mint, and it could be worth a staggering $70,000, maybe even $80,000 or $85,000. The Washington quarter series had been around for over half a century. By 1988, first struck in 1932, to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the design became one of the most familiar coins in American history. By the late 1980s, the quarter had a well-established look: Washington's bust on the front, the heraldic eagle on the reverse, and the Philadelphia Mint was pumping them out by the hundreds of millions. Skyrockets. Collectors want them for their rarity. Error specialists want them for their uniqueness, and investors want them because coins like this can appreciate dramatically in value, over $70,000 to $80,000. That's how we get to those jaw-dropping numbers. A perfect example: a pristine 1988 P-era quarter, in top mint state condition, $85,000 authenticated and certified by a major grading service, can easily reach $70,000. If you find one that's in absolutely exceptional shape, with strong visual appeal and perfect surfaces, you're looking at the possibility of $80,000 or even $85,000. Condition plays a huge role here. If you find a 1988 P-era quarter, but it's scratched, worn, or dinged up from circulation, it's still rare and valuable, but you might be looking at a few thousand instead of tens of thousands. On the other hand, a coin that's been carefully preserved, possibly pulled from a mint set shortly after production, can command life-changing money. Grading services like PCGS or NGC will assign a mint state grade. The higher the grade, the more collectors are willing to pay. MS67 or higher is where the astronomical prices really start to appear. What makes this even more exciting is that the average person has the tools to hunt for one. All you need is a magnifying glass, good lighting, and the patience to examine each 1988 P-quarter that comes your way. Focus on Washington's hair details, the spacing of letters, and the weight of the coin. Any major deviation from the standard specs could be a sign you've got something extraordinary. If you suspect you've found one, don't clean it. Cleaning destroys value. Instead, store it carefully and have it authenticated by a reputable grading company.